What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Today we're back with another design video focusing on the overall in-depth mechanics when it comes to skill shots in League of Legends. Now, although almost everyone uses skill shots when they play the game, it's not that easy to actually dive into things and really think about how they interact with characters, the in-depth mechanics of them, and just about everything else. So hopefully these sort of mechanics will help you guys both dodge and land a lot more abilities in your future games, and we're going to be focusing on the mechanics of skill shots that have, of course, practical applications. And as well, this video is going to be sponsored by LOL Sumo, which is a free app for both iOS and Android. Their goal is to help you improve in League of Legends by analyzing your games live in real time and also giving you some detailed stats of your own play. I've actually been using it for a really long time now, and it's always proven to be pretty useful for me, so I'm happy to promote them. They can help you pick out some runes for any champion while also giving you some dynamic tips and item build recommendations live for your in-game matchups that are tailored around your actual opponents. It's a really useful tool that is very tailored to your individual play, so I personally like it more than some of the other stats sites online that provide more generic advice. They also do have a pro version if you want to take it a step further, but it's actually completely free to use on both iOS and Android. So you don't have to take it from me, you can check it out at the link in the description below and decide for yourself if you like it or not. And without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So we're kicking things off in this video with a couple of tricks that are focused on helping you dodge more skill shots. Now the first is all about predicting what your opponent is about to do, such as when he's actually going to fire out a skill shot. A lot of players often fall into the trap of treating dodging a skill shot as a very reactionary thing. You kind of wait to see the skill shot being thrown out, and then you try to sidestep it or dodge it in real time. There's a lot of situations where you can definitely see a skill shot coming before it happens. In those situations, you definitely want to think carefully about the enemy champion and how they are going to aim the skill shot. By anticipating a skill shot before it even gets thrown out, you remove the need for reaction time at all. After all, you're simply just waiting for what you know is going to happen, and you already know where to move or where to dodge to so that you can avoid the skill shot once it comes. Now, this is actually probably the biggest reason that professional and challenger master tier players are so much better at dodging skill shots. It's because they dodge skill shots by not actually dodging them. They do it based on prediction. You start avoiding the skill shot in their head before it gets even thrown out, and as a result, they end up dodging a lot more skill shots without even trying as hard, and certainly without the need for some incredible reaction time. Now our next trick is a little bit micro intensive, and so it can be actually a pretty hard habit to get into, especially if you've been kind of just used to doing things a certain way for a long time. Now something that you can often see on pro player streams is how close to their champions they issue their movement commands when they're right clicking to move around. If you click half a screen or even a quarter of your screen away from your champion, you actually have much slower direction turns, which means your champions won't respond to the command as quickly as they could. Now, keeping your mouse cursor closer to your character speeds those turns up, which means you can change directions really quickly when moving around, and quite oftentimes it can give you the extra time you need to shift your champion's hitbox out of the path of an incoming skill shot. And secondly, it also allows you to twitch around at high speeds, which means it's a lot harder for enemy players to predict which direction you are going to move in, and people are going to have a lot harder time knowing where to throw their skill shots out on you, which means that you can often bait an enemy into firing their skill shot in one direction while you move the other way. Next up, we're going to be focusing on a couple of tricks to help you land some more of your skill shots. The first of which actually goes by the name of a term that originates from poker, and it's slow rolling. So unlike in poker, where slow rolling is pretty bad etiquette and involves slowly revealing a winning hand to kind of agonize your opponent, in League of Legends, slow rolling is a really effective technique that gives you a great way to mind game players that are trying to anticipate your skill shots. It essentially means that you just hold on to your skill shots for as long as possible against a player that is actively trying to dodge you. Say you're chasing down an enemy with Blitzcrank and they're constantly moving from side to side and trying to predict your rocket grab going for the dodge. Slow rolling in this situation is great for two reasons. The first, if a player is actively trying to dodge you, a lot of the times they're going to make a mistake or do something really predictable, which gives you a great opportunity to land your ability. Now the second benefit to slow rolling, and probably one of the more valuable ones, is that it can give you time to close down the distance between yourself and your enemy, and oftentimes creates a situation where the skill shot wasn't even necessary. Now, continuing our previous example of Blitzcrank chasing down an opponent, if that opponent is constantly trying to sidestep your rocket grab, the thing is that when they're constantly trying to dodge you, they're not actually moving away from you as efficiently as possible. They're not running away from you in a straight line, which means that even if both champions have the same movement speed, or sometimes even if you have less movement speed than your opponent, you can actually still eventually start to catch up to your opponent because he's not actually running away from you in a straight line. He's sidestepping all over the place, trying to predict your ability, trying to dodge, and doing all sorts of things that kind of slow down his actual travel time from point A to point B. The closer you are to an opponent as well, the more likely you are to land your skill shot. So you're essentially turning your opponent's attempts to anticipate your skill shot in a way to make it more likely for you to land your ability. Now, a lot of players, especially when you get to higher levels of skill, are going to be really unpredictable when you're kind of just out in the open and trying to hit them with a skill shot, like in the laning phase or something like that. And there's a lot of predictable movements actually that you can take advantage of. Now, some players call these timing attacks because it's all about kind of exploiting a window of time where you know exactly where your opponent is going to be. And there's a few key examples, such as when they're going for a minion last hit, if they're standing near a wall or a choke point, or when they're chasing someone down. In those situations, any movement is going to be very predictable, and that makes it a great time to line up a skill shot, and you want to try to take advantage of these sort of timing attacks as much as possible. The thing about when an opponent goes for the last hit on the minion, it's really predictable because they have to walk up to be in range to use their auto attack. And the thing about standing near a wall or a choke point is that your opponent has a limited area of movement, as opposed to if they're just totally out in the open, they can go in any direction 360 degrees. If they're near a wall, or even better, a choke point, they're kind of stuck and can only move in a couple of certain directions. So as a result, it can be a lot easier to predict their movement. And lastly, when an opponent is maybe chasing someone down, they kind of just tend to move in a straight line towards the target, making it really easy to land any abilities on them. Now, our next trick is something that you'll probably start to get the hang of as you play more and more of a single champion, and it's all about understanding your own champion's animations. Now, a lot of abilities in the game aren't necessarily tied to the direction that your champions face, but this can heavily influence the way your opponents dodge. A great example of this is Thresh's hook ability. During the windup, Thresh faces whatever direction you are facing from your last movement command, but once the hook is actually thrown out, he'll change to face the direction that the skill shot was aimed, and a lot of characters do this with their skill shot abilities. And this can be a really effective tool for taking enemies by surprise if your skill shot has a relatively long cast time compared to other abilities, especially if there's actually two enemies to aim at or multiple enemies in the situation. And there's a lot of easy ways to take advantage of this mechanic. You could perhaps turn around and face backwards before throwing out your skill shot, or in the situation where you're against multiple enemies, you could perhaps face one of the opponents while you're aiming your skill shot at the actual other person. So you can often catch people off guard, and they'll have a lot less time to react when the hook flies out in a direction that they just weren't expecting. Now, some champions actually work the other way around. Instead of changing direction when the ability actually fires, they face the direction the ability is fired right at the start of the cast animation. So definitely take a look. Maybe you could hop into a custom game or something like that, the practice tool, and check out your favorite champion's animations. Now, every champion's kind of a little bit different and have their own little quirks, so definitely be sure to check out how your specific champion's animations actually work in game. Now, on a similar note as our last trick, you can also take advantage of your opponent's animations too, such as when they're using an ability that forces their character to stand still during the cast time. If you're up against an enemy character that has an ability like this where it has a long cast time, while they're casting an ability is a great time to land a skill shot because they're forced to stand still. A great example of this may be something like Ezreal's ultimate. He can't move while he channels the ability, so he's a sitting duck for any of your own personal skill shots. Now, the next trick for today is all about some really awesome hitbox abuse. So skill shot detection works on what is known as an edge-to-edge system, which means if the very edge of your ability hits the very edge of a champion, it's counted as a hit. And this is what allows so many skill shots in the game to seem like they just completely miss when they actually hit. On top of that, there's also an additional mechanic based on the way the game is made, where abilities actually gain an extended hitbox at max range. Riot Xenon, who's a lead champion designer at Riot Games, mentioned that most missiles in League of Legends have an effect that game designers called lollipopping. It means that if the ability doesn't hit anything, it actually checks in a very small circle at the end position for any targets. It's a trick that helps abilities feel a lot more accurate for both the attacker and the target, especially in cases where the camera angle might suggest that you would have missed. The idea behind this implementation is that although it feels great to sidestep an ability, barely walking out of the max range actually feels pretty lame, especially when the animation extends a little bit past that. Now, Riot Meddler actually commented as a follow-up that the description of most abilities is a little bit of an exaggeration, so not all skill shots in League of Legends do this, but he did note that quite a fair number do, with Nautilus's Q being one of the most clear-cut examples of this. Anyway, what you should take away from this is that if you take the time to learn the hitboxes for different champions and abilities, you can often find ways to land abilities that your opponent might expect to miss. On top of that, don't be afraid to go for a max range skill shot now and again, especially if the target doesn't see it coming. You might be granted the hit thanks to the mechanic of lollipopping. Either way, that's just about going to wrap up the video for today. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or subscribe if you want. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.